Aloha and good morning from beautiful Wahiawa, Hawaii. PV here. Welcome to chapel and welcome to my car. So I decided that today, for the last chapel of the year, I'm going to do an AMA chapel. It's an Ask Me Anything, and that I would actually do it from my vehicle because, well, people are still sleeping in my house and I don't want to bother them and wake them up. So yeah, here we go. We're going to do it from my car. Hope you all are doing well. It's the last day of school. Good on you. You made it this far. All you got to do is make it to 3 o'clock and you're done for the year. So, you, if you want, you should probably just give yourself a POB, and that is a pat on the back. Good job. Good job. Good job. And Eli, in the 12th grade, you know who I'm referencing. So, all right. Well, so I got a bunch of questions from the forum and from my emails, and I am not going to take them in any specific order. I have not pored over these questions and racked my brain for the answers. I am just going to shoot from the hip. And so here we go. First question is, and again, I'm not going to say who asked the questions just because, maybe you don't want your name out there. The question is sin genetic in a literal sense that there are so-called sin genes in our DNA? Or, question mark. I don't know if I would say that sin is genetic in the sense that it's encoded in your DNA, but there is a Christian doctrine known as original sin, which says that we were all born with a sin nature, but it does not necessarily say that it is genetic. The idea is that as sin entered into the world through one man, Adam, grace has entered in through the one man, Jesus Christ. And it's one of those things where experience sort of provides evidence of that. As a parent now with 3 children, I've never had to teach my children to be mean to each other. I've usually had to do the opposite. I've had to teach them to be kind to one another. I remember one time my 2-year-old, well, she was 2 at the time, chucked a wooden block at Enzo's head, nailed him in the head. For no reason at all. She used to just bully him when she was a toddler. And she refused to apologize even when I took her toys away. And yeah, it's not something I had to teach her. And I had to say, hey, sweetie, okay, here's how you throw the perfect fastball at your brother's head. You're going to wind up and you got to fall. No, I didn't have to do that. She's just like, yeah, I don't like you. Boom. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. How can one respond to the, if God exists, why do bad things happen? This is classic. And it's one of those questions where, in the moment when the person is asking it, you want to be empathetic and understanding. It's not a new question. It's a question that's been asked for thousands of years, really. There's kind of a book in the Bible that deals with that sort of thing. But usually you want to figure out if this is an emotional question or an intellectual question. And what do I mean by that? Well, if it's an emotional question that's just like born out of current pain and personal suffering, providing intellectual answers as to why the existence of God and the existence of suffering in the world are mutually exclusive and therefore not contradictory, is not going to help that person. That person wants care and nurture. And sometimes you might just have to just sit and listen and be there. And be a loving person in that moment. So that's kind of how I would do it. In Bible 12, I don't know the age of the person who asked this, and hopefully you're with me when you're a senior. But senior, we do apologetics, and we actually look at this question. If you want, I would recommend the book that we use. Maybe it might be a little bit above your level. Again, I don't know who this is, but On Guard. There's a lot of good resources out there for that particular question. So that's just going to be my straight from the hip answer on this one. This question, is drug use in and of itself immoral or just stupid? Well, it kind of depends on what we mean by drugs, right? So I'm drinking some coffee, right? I like my coffee. I like it black. Okay. If the good Lord had intended it to taste like cream and sugar, he would have gone to the effort of doing that. Just kidding. But yeah, coffee contains caffeine. Caffeine is a drug. Okay. And so I have just engaged in camera in drug use. Well, I think certain drugs used in certain ways can be beneficial. I had surgery last year, and one of the things that they gave me for pain control, or I guess pain, I don't know, to medicate the pain, were opioids, oxycodone, and I think I had fentanyl when I was in the hospital with a little clicker. And so in that scenario, those drugs, we'll call them drugs, were used for a medical purpose. Okay? In another scenario, those drugs are used in non-medical purposes, and that's why we have kind of the opioid epidemic, as it's called, especially on the mainland. I don't know if it's here so much, but you hear about it on the mainland a lot. And so I think it depends on the purpose for which you intend to use said drug, right? Are we using it to medicate a condition or to sort of numb yourself to reality? And I think that's where we might find the line between, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? What creation theory do you find the most plausible? Interesting question. I usually try not to get involved in these sorts of fights because I don't find them to be particularly useful. It's good. It's like the whole Calvinism, Arminianism thing, if you know what it is, in Christian circles. I remember when I was in seminary, I'd go into the cafe and the Calvinists and the Arminians would be arguing with each other, and I'd just get my coffee and kind of sit on the sidelines and just listen to them fight over things which, in my mind, they had no... they didn't get the final word, right? God gets the final word on that one. As far as creation theories... my whole thing is Genesis 1 basically points to God. It just says, it illustrates a God of order, a God of design, a God of, who appreciates beauty. And so I look to that. If I have to pick one of the theories, I'm either going to go, I usually tend to go the day-age theory, the idea that the word in Hebrew, yom, can mean a 24-hour period, a 12-hour period, or an extended, undefined period of time, like an eon. I'll go with that one. But I think that the writer of Genesis is using poetic structure to describe the creation process, and I'm not sure that he's providing a scientific account of how it actually happened. But again, that's just my thought. It's not something that I want to get into fights with people about. I want to focus on Jesus and his life, death, and resurrection. The resurrection is the main thing. Why does macroevolution combat faith? Could it be part of a day-age creationism? I don't know if I would say macroevolution combats faith. I don't necessarily think it's compatible. Some people think it is. I think that there are ethical implications of the idea that speciation, I think is the word, but that different species were... how do we say this? The reason why we have so many different species is because they evolved from lesser species, right? The idea that, the reason why we have humans is because we evolved, Homo sapiens evolved from Australopithecines and all that stuff. If we are just one organism among many who have evolved to this point, then I'm not entirely sure what differentiates us from other organisms, which is why, like PETA, and again, we talk about this senior year, the idea of speciesism, and that your life is no different than the life of an ant or the life of a cow. And I think it's objectively true that human beings are significantly different than all other creatures. And I don't think you can account for that by pure macroevolution. It was kind of funny. There's a comedian who I won't name because otherwise you'll assume that this is an endorsement. But the person said, like, we're the only species that drinks another species' milk, referring to like cow milk. And the comedian says, like, yeah, we're also the only species that flies on airplanes and has iPhones. So yeah. All right, good questions, by the way, so far. Let's see. What is your daily routine and strategies for being organized? Well, my daily routine is I tend to get up before the sun does. I didn't always do this. I used to be a bit of a night bird. And I wake up early to get things done. Usually I would wake up early to work out, but this year I started going back to school to get another degree so that I could apply for military chaplaincy. And so now instead of working out, I do work. I either work on schoolwork for myself or I work on work for KCS. But yeah, I wake up early before the sun does, get my work done, help my wife get the meals ready for the day. then I shave, shower, that whole thing, and get out into the world. Strategies for being organized. First off is intention. You have to intend to be organized. You don't just fall into organization. It's something that I've learned over the years. One of the things I would recommend is calendaring. My dad used to really get on my case about this when I was younger. Somebody just came out of my house. I guess it's time for Trigger to have a walk. Sorry, I'm getting all these notifications on my phone while I'm filming this, and you can probably hear all the sounds. So that's kind of awesome. But yeah, no, my dad really encouraged me to calendar when I was younger, but I didn't listen to him because I thought I knew better, like most young people do, but they don't, and I didn't either. So I recommend calendaring everything. Calendar your time out so you know how it's being spent, which is kind of like budgeting your time and budgeting your money, right? You want to budget your money so you know exactly where every single dollar is being spent, because how you spend your money is a reflection of your values, and how you spend your time is a reflection of your values. If you spend an hour and a half in the gym, well, then that shows that you value working out, right? If you spend 4 hours binge watching YouTube, well, that shows that you value binge watching YouTube, which may not be productive, but it could be, because there's a lot of stuff there on YouTube that is highly instructive. So I would say first, calendar. Second, I'm kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, anal retentive about the things that I care about. So my books on my shelf are organized by category, subject, author, that whole thing. My closet before I got married was organized by different shirt type and pant type and color type, Roy G. Biv. So, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. After I got married, my wife was not really into my organizational strategy, and she just put things wherever she wanted to. And it was one of our first fights. I actually refolded the shirts that she folded and put away from me because she didn't do them correctly, and it did not go well for me. So now I've learned to maybe ease up on a little bit of that. But yeah, calendaring, having a system of how you do things, even like your backpack, right? You're all in school. I organize my backpack back to front, large to small, so that the biggest thing in my backpack is up against my back, which I consider the back of the backpack, and then work that way. So yeah, calendaring and developing a system and sticking with it. What do I do in my free time? That's funny. I didn't have a lot of free time this year because I was, teaching in the era of coronavirus and going to school as well. But what I like to do in my free time, I like to work out. I like to read. I really do enjoy reading. I tend to read a lot of nonfiction, but this year I've been reading comic books again, just because I needed something light, because I was doing so much reading for school. So I started reading comic books again, mostly Star Wars comics, because I'm a Star Wars nerd, and so I like getting into the expanded universe that way. I also play video games. I think there's a question in here about video games later, so I'm not going to expand too much there. Do I have any siblings? Yes, I do, and interestingly enough, she is also a teacher. She teaches in public school at Pearl City Elementary, and she also teaches math. So, yeah, siblings, man. Like, she is... I love her, but we don't always get along. But if you mess with my sister, I'm going to come after you. But, we'll fight harder than anybody else with each other. But, hey, blood's thicker than water, right? What's a struggle this year that you had, but God helped you get through it? Coffee sip. All right, well, I'm going to be 100% real with you. Struggle I had this year was working, okay? I know for the students, y'all have had a difficult, a challenging year. I'm gonna say challenging because y'all came through it. A challenging year, and some of us we've dialogued back and forth about that, and I've been praying for y'all. Y'all have been using that prayer form, and but your teachers have had a rough year too. It's been very interesting, especially with the hybrid model of teaching students who were both on campus and off campus at the same time. And there were times when I was really thinking about, okay, maybe it's time to choose a new line of work. It's like that scene from Top Gun where they get chewed out for buzzing the tower, and Goose is like, maybe I should try truck driving. You got the number of that truck driving school we saw on TV last night, Truckmaster? Yeah, I think I'm going to call them. And I was thinking, yeah, maybe I'm just going to try something else. But, God brought me through, and we're here at the end of the year, and I'm still gainfully employed by KCS. I haven't quit, and I'll be back in the fall, so long as they don't fire me. Please don't fire me, Mrs. On. Please, just keep me. Okay. Let's see. Are you going to be the freshman homeroom teacher next year? Speaking of my bosses, that question is above my pay grade, so I can't answer that. I can't. Yeah, sorry. That's the Mrs. On or Mr. Kanakanui question, not a PV question. Nice neighborhood. Oh, thank you. I enjoy it out here in Wahiawa. I am not a townie by any stretch at all. I just, once I pass Kipapa Gulch and all the green and the mist, I just feel so much more relaxed as I'm coming home. So I love where I live. So thank you. Let's see. What is a question to ask you anything? Does that count? Well, yeah, I said ask me anything. A question you could ask me, I don't know. The banks asked me, what's your mother's maiden name? What's your high school mascot? What's the name of your best man at your wedding? Okay. Does summer count as summer even if you're doing something work-related? Of course it does. Okay. Summer begins June 21st and ends September 20th. Okay. Very simple. Doesn't matter what you're doing. That's summer. If you give your younger self advice, what would it be? This is actually related to a previous question. I would say get organized early. Like, do it now. Okay. I'd also say put in more effort. I don't mean to brag, but I was born with an above average intellectual capacity. Okay. But I didn't work at it. And then to give you an example of this, so I mentioned my sister. So my sister had to work really, 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 really hard in school to do well. I kind of coasted by on natural ability. And to give you an illustration of that, so I took the SAT once. I was not one of these people who took it multiple times. I also did not take any SAT prep classes because on principle I thought this is ridiculous. It's an aptitude test. Why am I going to take a prep class to test my aptitude? And so the day of my SAT, there were 3 things on my schedule that day. I had the SAT, I had the Punahou relays, and I had junior prom. Okay. In order of importance in my life at the time was junior prom, Punahou relays, and SAT. I showed up for the SAT. No prep, nothing. And I did like a 700 verbal and a 690 math for a 1390 combined score. And I never took it again. Okay. Now, 1390 is not perfect. That's 1600, but for not prepping and just going in and taking the test blind, that's pretty good. If I had applied myself when I was in school, I probably gotten a higher score and probably gotten into, different, maybe higher colleges than I did. In fact, I just went to the first college who accepted me because they didn't really care. So I would have told my younger self, and I'll tell you, apply yourself, whatever you're doing. There's a quote I used to tell my students that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Okay, so talent's only going to get you so far. All right, best way to handle stress. Okay? Well, I mean, it's really up to the person because what the best way to handle stress for me might not be the best way to handle stress for you. So like when I'm feeling kind of amped, aggro, whatever, I like to go for a run. Running for me is very therapeutic. It makes me just, focus on the simple things, breathing, pace, tempo. Allows me to kind of sort my thoughts out, but not everybody likes running. So that's how I like to handle stress. How long have I been working at Kaimuki Christian School? Well, I started working at Kaimuki Christian Church as an intern back in 2008. And then I was ordained in 2009. And then in 2012, I started teaching at the school part-time. And then in 2013, I moved over to full-time. So I'm guessing that's 7 years. Biggest highlight of the year. Well, it's not related to my work, but I guess school. I finished my first year back in school. I got A's in all my classes. Which, that's a highlight for me. It's been a bit before since I've been in school, so that was a highlight for me. Yeah. When did I first learn about God? I think I've answered this question before, but I'm going to go ahead and give it again. So I would just say that knowing about God was sort of like the atmosphere in which I was raised. My great grandma was a devout woman. Her husband was a chief in the Navy, submariner. He died in 1943. His sub was sunk by the Japanese, and so he's out on eternal patrol. And so she raised 9 kids as a single mom. And my tutu tells me I remember my tutu telling me, and so I could be wrong. Tutu, you watch this, I know that. So, if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. Yes, my tutu does watch the chapel videos. But she would just stop in the middle of something and just get on her knees and pray to God, because she was so overwhelmed, by the responsibility and the task of raising 9 children as a single mom. And so that impacted my tutu, who I think, if I remember her correctly, she said at the time, like, she thought that was like totally weird, but then when she was older, she realized, what was going on. And so she passed that on to my dad, who passed that on to, my mom and us. So I am blessed to inherit a tradition of faith from my great-grandmother and my tutu. Let's see. How were dinosaurs made? Same way everything else is made. They were created. Okay. On a side note, I don't think you're going to find dinosaurs in the Bible. The Bible is not necessarily going to answer every question we have, but it is going to tell us what we need to know. It's kind of like a math teacher, right? A math teacher's not going to answer every question you have about, TikTok, which is cancerous coronavirus AIDS of the internet. It's the worst thing. And if you like TikTok, I feel sorry for you. But as a math teacher, I don't have anything to say about TikTok, okay? Because that's not my intention. My intention is to teach you math. The Bible has an intention, and it's not necessarily there to tell us about dinosaurs. Not that dinosaurs aren't important. I thought dinosaurs were pretty cool when I was a kid. Velociraptors, super cool. But yeah, I'm going to go there. Do you know anyone that doesn't like pizza or bacon? No, because I do not associate with such types. How did you become a pastor? This question was actually asked in my ethics class when I was telling them about sort of my past endeavors before I was a Christian. And one of the students was like, so how did you become a pastor? I'm going to give you the short PG version of this, because I have 4th and 5th graders who watch this, and they ain't ready for PV. You can ask me that in 11th grade, and I'll tell you all about it. Okay? But let's just say that I had a spiritual encounter with Jesus that I could not deny, which led me to become a follower of Jesus. Then, in seeking out my calling in life and volunteering with my church at the time, one of the pastors saw potential in me and encouraged me to, prayerfully consider it and ministry, and so I did. And then so I went to seminary, and then I got ordained, and I'm here. Okay. Favorite video game? That's a hard one. Okay. But I will say I think one of my favorites would either be Super Mario Brothers 3 or Super Mario World. I really loved those games, and I played through Super Mario World, got all the I think it was like the Yoshi coins or whatever. And I remember Super Mario 3 too. It was one of those ones where I tried to collect everything, and I really just enjoyed those games. They were just fun. It's simple by today's means, right? But it was fun. I also like the original Halo, but for sentimental reasons. Me and my buddy Derek were in college, and he got the Xbox, the original Xbox, and I remember us playing co-op campaign, couch co-op. There's no online at this point, and just having a great time playing with him. Let's see. Scene from a TV show that you would never forget. Okay, so, spoiler alert. If you have not watched Mandalorian Season 2 and are planning on watching it, you need to fast forward a minute ahead into the video. Okay? Or go out the room. I'm warning you right now. Okay? I don't want to hear about how I spoiled things. Okay? You've been warned. Scene in the TV show, and I don't watch a lot of TV shows, but scene in a TV show that I'll not forget. The end of Season 2 in The Mandalorian, where they're aboard the ship, and I'm drawing a blank. The Death Troopers are doing their thing, and then the X-Wing shows up, and, Gina Carano's like, oh, an X-Wing, a lone X-Wing, yay, we're saved. And it's like, I know who that is. I know who that is. And then, you see the camera footage, and then it's Luke Skywalker, and I was like, I lost it, man. I was there sitting, and I think my wife's watching this with me, and I'm trying not to cry, because, I'm just a big baby Star Wars nerd, whatever, and I don't want to be all, sissified in front of my wife, but I'm just like, oh, man, it got me. It got me all in the feels. He's hacking through these Death Troopers, and he takes the hood off. It's like Luke Skywalker, the real Luke Skywalker. None of this Last Jedi nonsense Luke Skywalker. The real Luke Skywalker. All right? This is an interesting question. What would you do if you were walking down the street, going back to your house, and a lizard jumps in your shoe, but before you can do anything, it consumes your shoelace? Also, let's assume the lizard is like the size of your face. And immediately I think about the movie Aliens, which is a bit too much for most of you all watching this and is not a recommendation. I am going to punt that lizard as far as I can. Final question. Do we still have time to be kids in high school, or is there too much work? I'm guessing this is coming from an 8th grader. Yes, you do, okay? The thing is, though, you're going to have to learn balance and focus. What I mean by that is balance your work with your play, okay? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. But when you're working, you work, okay? So I have suspicions about how some high schoolers work. I'm not saying all high schoolers do this. I'm not even making any accusations because I have no evidence. But I have a sneaking suspicion that when high schoolers are doing their work, that they're not actually focused on their work, that they have multiple things going on at a time. There might be a TV show in the background. They might be listening to music with lyrics. They might be checking their phone every notification. And so they're actually not focused on the work. So the work takes longer than it actually needs to. And so when you're working, I would say just work. Focus on what you're doing. And like I said earlier, schedule that time out. So like, hey, for this hour, I'm going to work on my homework. Okay. As you're doing, just do homework. Put everything away. Don't even have your phone in the room with you, okay? Because, those notifications go off. If you have an Apple Watch, take it off. Because, man, like, I'll be working, and I get notifications on my Apple Watch. And it's like, leave me alone, okay? So, or you can turn it into Do Not Disturb mode, right? But, do you. Okay? But when you're working, focus on your work. Just do that. And if you gotta listen to music with no lyrics. Okay, the lyrics are gonna make your mind like focus on that instead of focus on what you're doing. Okay, so I love jazz. I know not everybody does, but I'll listen to. I have a Pandora station because I'm old and don't do Spotify that much, where it's just some of my favorite jazz guitarists, and I just listen to that and I work and I focus. Okay, and so when you've scheduled your work, okay, then you schedule time to play. Okay, so maybe I'm going to work for an hour and then I'm going to play for 30 minutes. When you're playing, just play. Okay, play your video games. Go play basketball with a friend. Do what you're going to do. Okay, but when you work, you work. When you play, and make sure that you're scheduling that out. Okay, so that you make sure that happens. Is there too much work in high school? Depends on what you mean by too much. I know that I try to be. I cannot speak for all of the high school teachers. And I'm also not going to throw anybody under the bus. I know that I try to be aware of how much work I'm assigning because I'm a dad and I have kids and I don't necessarily want them slaving away at homework all the time. I want to do family stuff. I want them to get out of the house and enjoy the fresh air that we have around here. So I'm aware of that. And as high schoolers will tell you, because again, I'm pretty much guessing that's not a high school student asking that question. If you talk to me, if you keep me in the loop, okay, I tend to be pretty responsive to your needs because I'm a teacher, but I'm also a chaplain, and so sometimes I wear the teacher hat and sometimes I wear the chaplain hat, and I'll make the adjustment if I need to, if I can accomplish my educational goals while still reducing the workload to make it more reasonable. I will do that. But I can't do that unless you talk to me. So to quote Tom Cruise from, I can't even remember Jerry Maguire, help me help you. And on that note, we're done. This has been the longest chapel video of the year because y'all asked so many good questions. Maybe I should have broken this up into 2. But it has been really interesting this year to do chapel in this fashion. I'm looking forward to getting back in person with you whenever that is, but this has been enjoyable, and so thank you for making this enjoyable for me. So I pray that you have a wonderful summer, and just aloha, have a great day. PV out.